Hello everyone. Today is Friday, the 4th of April. What am I going to talk about today? Okay, I have been rereading this book, C.S.Lewis, the Screwtape Letters. You remember this book? I'm sure you read it at some point. But you need to. I like going back sometimes, and very, very interesting. Written in 1942. By the way, I just saw this something that I had here is a bookmark. Pablo Picasso, a handshake, and I think it was given to me by my daughter. And I just wonder whether you can. I just realized it, actually. Look at that. It's a special handshake. Can you see it? I wonder whether it was just a handshake or just an ordinary one, or whether there was something kind of special about this handshake. I don't know. I've just noticed it about an hour ago. Anyway, so I was looking at, I was rereading this, and C.S. Lewis, An Irishman, yeah? It's a delight of a little book. As I said, I know that probably most of you have read it, but if you allow me, because this small channel is actually singing some places in Asia, not everybody might be aware of it, but it's really a masterpiece, I think. And it is about the devil, the evil one, that in order to deceive its victims, he calls it his patients, has to use all these arts, this hypocrisy, in order to deceive. And this particular devil, Screwtape, it's a very experienced devil, quite high up in the hierarchy, although C.S. Lewis says, because we're talking about the devil, instead of hierarchy, he calls it the lower archy. So he's really deep down in the lower archy. And okay, so since he's dealing with the devil and hell, and he's writing letters to his young nephew, who is a young devil, okay, a novice, a rookie, and he's teaching him, to get into the, the devilish arts, the deceitful arts, and how to go about leading his patient onto the road to perdition, let us say. Okay, just to give you just one short paragraph of one of the letters, for example. Let's see, I'll just choose one. Okay. Letter number 7. He's writing to his nephew, okay, who's still young and not very experienced, and he says, "My dear Wormwood," that is his name, "I wonder you should ask me whether it is essential to keep the patient," that's the victim, "in ignorance of your existence. That question, at least for the present phase of the struggle, has been answered for us by the High Command. Our policy for the moment is to conceal ourselves. Of course, this has not always been so. We are really faced now with the cruel dilemma. When the humans disbelieve in our existence, we lose all the pleasing results of direct terrorism, and we make no magicians. On the other hand, when they believe in us, we cannot make them materialists and skeptics, at least not yet." Anyway, so this is the type of thing that he writes on how to go about getting that good person onto the wrong path. But Lewis is writing in 1942 at a time when the devil still had to hide himself, had to disguise himself. And the reason why I went back to reading it is that one of my favorite Spanish authors of the moment, I have mentioned him before, Juan Luis Prada, Juan Luis de Prada. He's writing, he's in his 50s, and he's writing this amazing, he's an amazing writer. And because his books are not being translated, I don't think, I just wonder whether I can be a little bit of a bridge, yes, to bring to you some things that you might not be aware, that you're not aware of, that you might never read. And in one, first of all, he writes huge books, okay, novels for the most part, a fervent Catholic, as a matter of fact, and he seems to be bringing out about a book every 2 years or so. I'm binging. I'm going to read everything that he has written because he's a marvelous author. But normally he stays out while he's writing. He's not out there. But when he has to. When one of his books is being published, he has to go through the interviews and so on. I was just watching yesterday one of his interviews, and about 2 days ago, and it's talking about the latest book. But someone referred him to this old book about the devil, because he wrote a book following on using Lewis as a teacher. How now he thinks that a new book has to be written about how the devil takes us in the wrong way, which is not the same thing. He says that Lewis was writing at a time when the devils could still, they could not show their faces openly. Yes, they had to disguise themselves. The devil, Screwtape had to disguise himself, had to whisper in your ear. Evil could not show itself, even as a few years ago in the 1940s, it could not show itself with its face uncovered. It had to pretend that it was good, that he had a great objective in mind. He had to find always an excuse, had to pass itself as good, to for you to convince you that you were doing the right thing, an excuse, a temptation. In short, the ways of the devil, his teaching to his young nephew in Lewis's book, is in the art of deceit. And he is very, very, very subtle, as you can imagine. Most of the time, throughout the writing, a great importance is placed on us not noticing this in Lewis's book. Not noticing that we are being persuaded, cajoled, to go the other way. And he teaches his nephew, Wormwood, how to inspire in his victim, his patient, a number of perverse thoughts, but which have the appearance of goodness. There is, in other words, that there is, this is the normal, the logical way to go about it, And so Juan Manuel Prada has written a book about that today as an answer. And in that book, the old uncle, Screwtape, is already retired, okay, and he's like a devil emeritus, as it were. And his nephew, Wormwood, is now, in his prime, but is a different kind of devil. He is now no longer a rookie. He's now experienced. He no longer listens to his old uncle. He lost respect for him, for old Screwtape. He regards him as old school, when a devil still had to hide and disguise himself in order to deceive. Oh my goodness, those were ancient ways. That way of doing things. Now times have changed since the 40s, obviously, and the devil no longer needs to hide. Not at all. Are you kidding? I mean, there he is, yeah? And so he behaves, this young devil now, he's no longer that young or that inexperienced, but he behaves with such a nerve now, an audacity, that is truly overwhelming. Why the change? The differences between Lewis's world and ours is that now evil can show itself openly, indeed display himself. Doesn't need embellishments, doesn't need disguises. And Prada thinks that this is a distinctive note of our times. In fact, Juan Manuel de Prada argues that it goes further than that. Before, evil had to disguise itself to appear good. Today, evil has become the good, the norm. Of course, it doesn't need disguises. If it disguised itself, it would stop seeming what it is, normal, good. So no, evil is now normal, and there it is, in full display, rampant all over the place, uninhibited, sometimes obscene. So in his book, the nephew, Wormwood, is uninhibited, shameless, crude, vulgar, rude, and above all, he has a profound disdain and contempt for all of us, for its patients, its victims. Of course. How can the devil, he argues, not look at us, humans, his patients, with anything but contempt? Absolute contempt is the one he shows throughout the book. Why? It's easy for him. Because all those moral restraints, moral scaffoldings we used to have, they're gone. The things we are seeing today, he argues it's almost a regression to animality. Of course, but all of that, all those new ideas that seem, they have to be ambushed, as it were, with democratic, humanistic alibis. He argues, he says that we are broken. He gives an example during this interview that I just heard 2 days ago. He gives an example what happened to all of us in 2020 with the flu. To take a look back now with a little bit of distance at how we behave. And I'm going to use these examples because, look, I know that it's very uncomfortable for all of us. And I know we just, it's gone, it's past, and we don't want to look at it to feel uncomfortable, perhaps. And that is understandable. And I'm going to bring it in because, believe me, it's not that I'm trying to rub it in or anything like that. That is kind of cheap. And it's just that we have to have the courage now to see how we were misled and how we succumbed to it. I think it is, we have to look at it. It's the equivalent of dare I say, confession, but an acknowledgement to ourselves, so that we see what happened and we don't repeat it, because it might be repeated with a different issue, a different topic. It could be a war. You know, we have to do this because it's the good thing, that kind of thing. We need to be very, very aware of what happened to us. And the reason why I say I don't want to rub it in is because it's not because people were evil, it's not because people were stupid. I disagree with sometimes commentators who talk about the flock or the herd or something like that. I think it's much worse than that. I think that it was ordinary, good, decent people who, of course, trusted those in power, who of course trusted the government in something as serious as a disease like that. Of course they trusted them. Why wouldn't they? Yeah, and so, but so it's not the people I don't see who were at fault here, is that their trust was abused. And that is what is so, that is why we have to be aware, because it was like, if I could give you an example of how I feel about it, it's like robbing a child of its innocence. You know, it's as if you show yourself to a little kid or something. It's robbing a child of its innocence. You know, it's the same thing as violating the trust that people had. That is why it is important, and that is why I bring it up nowadays. And because we are now at a distance, I don't want to talk about the war, or what is happening now, or how we are perhaps being induced now to, especially in Europe, to go to another war. That's another video. Perhaps I'll do that too. But we can look at what happened with, in a, you know, in a better, more honest way. Of course, the ways, the scheme they had was to, we all know this now, yes, to provoke fear in the population. But why fear? Because fear clouds the senses, you see. Fear has an effect on our reptilian brain, in which the anxiety and the confusion that fear generates leads us to accept things that under normal circumstances we would think they're insane, really. They got us to accept insane things. Those confinements at home, which by the way were illegal. Masks in open spaces, you remember those. Injections without complying with all the necessary previous protocols that exist before approving a medicine. All this happened. But now at a distance, any person, please, who has not lost the sense of reason, realizes that what they did to us was something unspeakable, unmentionable. There is an old interview with Soros, Grandpa Soros, yeah? He says that under normal circumstances, people would never accept to do certain things. So you have to change those normal conditions. It could be a virus, it could be a war, it could be whatever. He says that when you manage to instill fear, you've managed to disorient the people, to scare them, And people in those circumstances, normal people, all of us, will follow, will do what they ask, what you ask, without any problems. And Soros said that. So they did it, and Wormwood, now an experienced devil, knows that, and knows that it works. The suppression of our critical capacity, and therefore the suppression of our moral judgment, moral discernment, our conscience, gone. Instead of saying what the government did or something, I want to think about old people, the elderly, and how they were treated. Many elderly people died alone by themselves, without their loved ones present, without any spiritual assistance. They died alone. And this is where we have to accept what we did, all of us. We allow them to die like dogs. They were buried without being paid the loving honor that their families owe them. And this was accepted by all of us, as if it was a normal thing. Do you see the devil Wormwood? Now, it's not that they disguise, it's just that is the normal thing. Wormwood, there, you see, no longer needing to hide. He's there, and he is the good. And since evil is good, the normal, we didn't even need to be forced for the most part. Not really. We were simply invited to go along, peacefully invited to become part of that flock where you will be protected, warmly like, calmed, not attacked. And this is devastating because it kills critical and moral discernment. It was truly perplexing, a repression of our humanity. I pinpoint this fact because throughout the whole of history, even in prehistoric times, people who died, people always honored the dead. There is no human civilization that you can go to ever that hasn't done so. To honor the dead should make us think. And of course, Wormwood laughed. Hence the contempt, of course. Wormwood laughed out loud. He laughed his head off. You can see why the contempt, the disdain that the devil feels for us laughed in our faces. It's still there laughing. They use science or scientism, which was almost charlatanism, biopolitics in that case. And as a ritual, because we do need rituals to show us that we are doing the right thing, they ask us to come out and applaud. You remember? We all applauded. we were doing the right thing. How is it possible to turn human beings into this amorphous mass? Death was evident then. I'm not saying that it did not happen. People died, yes. So there had to be a number of mechanisms that would keep people away from that nefarious mania of thinking critically. Mechanisms to make people survive psychologically. Huxley's summer, yeah, the happiness pill, the content, you're content, yes. If there is some anxiety there, I take a little pill, the summer, and that's it. Not confronting big questions. To keep people in this empty emotionalism, giving them sentimental, sugary consolations. And so we all applaud it. And of course now in their kindness they're giving us euthanasia, yes, so that we can peacefully withdraw discreetly from life. It's happening again, I believe, and that is why I think that it is important that we are on the lookout, because I do believe that it's happening again with this war that the European Union is preparing, or is talking about it, this bellicose attitude towards war. I am not a pacifist as such. I do believe that there is such thing as a just war. But there is also such a thing as unjust peace. Oh, yes, let's go to the... But that one over there, don't look at it. Don't look at it. No one is talking about it. Oh, it's just on the periphery there. Don't do anything about it. It's not happening. To give us an unjust peace. So it's not that I am a pacifist as such, but it's happening again. So I will do that in another video, I think. Okay, I leave it here today. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.